Hello folks, Dave Mayo here from HackYourGut.com, and today we're going to go over the fermented foods that I kind of keep around the house and that I eat on a daily basis. So to begin, we're going to talk about why you would want to add fermented foods. There was a recent study called the FI-FO study, and what they found was that people who ate fermented foods rather than people who ate more fiber actually saw a decrease in inflammation, systemic inflammation in their body. It's important to point out that the people who are consuming probiotic foods also saw some increases in diversity, and when they did a subgroup analysis of the people who consumed fiber, the people who had higher diversity actually saw benefits from consuming fiber. So here, that kind of tells us that we could use probiotic foods to increase our microbial diversity in the gut, and then we can actually attain the benefits of consuming prebiotic fibers. So here we have a little spread of food. We're going to discuss what each one of these things are, why I use it, and where I get it. But before we begin, you may want to kind of jump over to one of our videos on the difference between probiotics, prebiotics, symbiotics, and postbiotics. Just a quick rundown. Prebiotics are foods that feed fiber. Probiotics are the actual fiber. Symbiotics are the combination of a prebiotic with a probiotic in a supplement form to enhance survival. And postbiotics are what the bacteria actually make from the prebiotic. So it's kind of the metabolites that are created when the probiotic ferments the prebiotic. So here we have a bunch of different fermented foods. I eat most of these daily. We're going to kind of go from left to right here. I keep these separate on the left-hand side because they are actually shelf stable, so they're on the shelf. So they may or may not have live cultures within them. My guess is that the two pastes do have live cultures because they're high in salt, which can restrict microbial growth. But in addition to that, while they are stable on the shelf for a couple of months, it is better to refrigerate them. So chances are they probably do contain some live probiotic cultures as well, but I kind of go on the assumption that they don't. The important thing from that FI-FO study was that they used live culture fermented foods. So in addition to have the prebiotics and the probiotics are actually alive. That doesn't necessarily mean that they take over residence in the gut. In fact, we don't know that that is even necessary to get the benefits from it. But when we look at these live probiotic foods with live cultures, we're getting the benefits of the live probiotic, which the live probiotics actually interact with the epithelial wall in your gut, so they provide a benefit. They're also packaged with fiber, and they contain the postbiotics or metabolites that also give you benefits. So you're kind of getting everything in there. But the shelf-stable stuff is hit or miss. Some things, such as like pickles, where you'll notice that they put in like acetic acid, which is just vinegar. When they simply have pickles with acetic acid, that's actually just simulating fermentation. It isn't actually fermentation in and of itself. So that does not contain live probiotic cultures. So here, the first thing we have here is this, it's called donyang traditionally, but if you find it on the shelf, it's fermented soybean paste. It contains Bacillus subtilis, which is a probiotic organism that can create vitamin K2. It's overall beneficial. It lives in a spore form, so it can survive the acidic contents of your stomach. But it's very good. It's salty, very umami. I picked this up at Wegmans, but I've also seen it at other stores. Again, this is on the shelf. So I don't necessarily know that it contains live cultures, but it will contain prebiotics, probiotics, although they're maybe dead, and postbiotics as well. Here we have fermented red pepper paste. This is delicious if you like a little kick in your stuff. Again, made by the same company, J1, which generally has good ingredients. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of is that it's in plastic, but they don't contain MSG. The soy-based one is non-GMO. Not that I'm concerned with GMOs per se, but the whole purpose of making soy GMO is so that they can just load it up with glyphosate, the pesticide, and who knows if what that's doing to us. So I kind of like to err on the side of caution with things of that nature. Both this and the soybean paste, you can use that to make a broth, or alternatively, you could put it on bread or use it as I do. I simply just have some of it before my food. Great source of sodium. I generally have low blood pressure, so I take this in the morning to kind of help bring my blood pressure up a little bit so that I don't kind of, in my mornings I'm very active and I can be moving back and forth, so I like to kind of make sure that my blood pressure is pretty good, especially since I also exercise in the morning. Next, we have San Francisco sourdough bread. Get this at Trader Joe's. It's delicious. This is not going to contain live cultures at all, but it's delicious. It is a fermented food, so it will contain prebiotics and postbiotics, as well as some dead yeast that's also in the bread. That is at Trader Joe's. Now we kind of have the suite of live probiotic foods that I eat on a daily basis. I try to get around 6 servings a day. That's what that Fee-Fi-Fo study found, was consuming 6 1-ounce servings of probiotic foods, fermented foods with live cultures, actually decreased inflammation. We'll start left from right here. Here we have kimchi. I get this at Wegmans. It is really good. This is plain kimchi. The contents are Napa cabbage, chili pepper, garlic, cane sugar, onion, ginger, sea salt. It has about a touch of a kick. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 5, it's probably about a 1.5, 2. So if you're sensitive to spicy foods, this is the one you would want to go with. Thing I like about this, it's in glass. Trader Joe's, one of the problems I have with a lot of their fermented foods, their sauerkraut and their kimchi, is that it's in plastic. This is in glass, so I enjoy this much more. Next, we have spicy kimchi from Wegmans. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is probably a 4, 4.5. Same exact ingredients. I do believe they add no, it's exactly the same ingredients as the other one. They just kick the heat up a notch. Very, very delicious. And we're actually going to move on to this. This is sauerkraut, again, bought at Wegmans. It's organic. The reason I do Wegmans is because of the glass. And this sauerkraut actually has some caraway seeds in it, so it has a different flavor. Now, one important thing I like to point out with the vegetable-based probiotics is it's always good to rotate these, not rotate the physical ones, but actually rotate them when they're in the refrigerator. So on day 1, I'll consume them and then I'll put them in the refrigerator upside down. The reasoning for that is that I actually want the brine to be kind of, or the vegetables to be in the brine, because that's where a lot of the probiotics are living. So I rotate these. It also prevents them from drying out. So on one day I'll eat it and I'll put it back in the fridge upside down. The next day I'll twitch it back. Or you could additionally just put it upside down for a few minutes before you consume it. Either way, it's really good to do that. These get really dry if they're sticking out of the water and they don't taste very good, and I imagine it's going to affect the potency. You don't want to eat this sauerkraut or this kimchi for, a couple of weeks and then have all the juice in the bottom, because the juice is going to contain a lot of the probiotics, the brine. So I like to make sure that it is constantly being bathed in that. And then at the end, if there is brine left, I shoot that. There's a supplement called Gut Shots that uses the same kind of idea. Now we're going to move over to the dairy. This is a big contribution to my fermented foods because it's also a great source of calcium, which is hard to get in the diet. The first one, goat milk kefir. I go with goat milk because it has oligosaccharides that are more similar to human oligosaccharides than cow's milk. And I do know that if I consume a lot of cow's milk, I do start to get eczema. I mean, it does take a lot, but it's generally the more liquid forms like ice cream, milk, and I've had cow milk kefir before, but I haven't really tested out the whole dosage thing on that. But I use goat milk kefir. This one is from Trader Joe's. Wegmans and a lot of other grocery stores also carry Redwood Hill Farms goat milk kefir. It's delicious. This one does contain different live cultures than the one from Redwood Hill Farms. This one's from Trader Joe's. One of the main ones I'm looking for is Lactobacillus rhamnosus, as well as some of the bifidobacterium species. So this is delicious. I use this in mornings. Additionally, a lot of the times it's hard to get this kefir. So what I'll do is, if I can't get this one or the Redwood Hill Farms, I will go for the goat milk yogurt instead. Very similar probiotic makeup, and it is a probiotic food with live cultures. Next is Israeli feta made from sheep's milk in brine. This stuff is banging. Most people aren't aware, but a lot of the feta in the United States is actually made from cow's milk. I prefer sheep and goat's milk for my feta. It has a much better taste than the cow's milk. I do, in addition, try the blue cheese from Trader Joe's as well. This is from Trader Joe's. The blue cheese is another kind of fermented cheese that I consume regularly. I'm just on Israeli feta now, so I don't have any blue cheese in the refrigerator, but I kind of alternate these throughout the year. And sometimes I am consuming both because my son, who's 5.5 as of a couple days ago, he really enjoys the goat milk feta, specifically the sheep's milk feta, but he also likes the goat milk varieties. He does not like the cow milk varieties. Next, we have Trader Joe's sliced goat's milk Dutch cheese. This stuff is banging. Kind of up in the air whether or not that actually contains live cultures. I'm going to assume it probably does based on the other types of cheeses that do. They also make a goat's milk cheddar, which will 100% contain live cultures because it is an aged product. But again, I use these types of cheeses simply to not only get my calcium, but to bump up my probiotic foods. And finally, just your standard mozzarella cheese sticks. Get these from Trader Joe's as well. They are, mozzarella is one of the cheeses that does contain live enzymes. I use that. That's kind of rotated in. I don't like to eat too much cheese. And I do like to stick to the goat milk varieties because, you know, when I'm eating stuff that I don't have control over from a restaurant or what have you, they're really not going to do goat's milk cheese, kefir, yogurts, milks, etc., etc. So that is basically all of the stuff I consume that I keep at the house all the time to make sure that I'm getting my fermented food intake up as high as possible. If you haven't checked out, I actually did a video and or a blog discussing how low my inflammation was. It was wonderful. It was in the lower 2.5 percentile, which is amazing. Very happy with that. I do suspect that my probiotic food, fermented food intake probably plays a role in that. The problem is I was not consuming 6 servings at the time of that. I was probably consuming 2 or 3 a day. So we'll see how that changes throughout time. Finally, another fermented food I consume, but I am under no illusion that it benefits, is beer. They do make non-alcoholic varieties, and certain non-alcoholic varieties that are not pasteurized may have some beneficial effect, and there is evidence that hops that is found in beer does have a beneficial effect, but with beer and things of that nature, the alcohol pretty much negates any of the benefit you're getting from the any of the probiotic cultures. So, you know, if you can consume non-alcoholic beer, provided the process that they make it non-alcoholic from is done without heat to kill the bacteria, then you will probably see some live enzymes in there. I do know there is a company called BrewDog that doesn't pull out the alcohol. They actually use a micro fermentation process to ferment it to 0.5% alcohol or lower, and that is probably going to contain the live cultures. Additionally, I'll rotate the fermented tea kombucha. Not a huge fan of that. It does contain alcohol and just a little more sugar than I really want. From something like that. There are other things I consume that have sugar in them, and the sugars are beneficial. So these are my go-tos on my fermented food intake on a daily basis. So if you have any questions, if you enjoyed this video, please like and share on social media. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be covering a lot of the foods I eat and things of that nature. And finally, if you haven't yet, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these videos, how I can make them better, and what you liked and did not like about them. Thank you very much for listening in, and take care.